Our friend Ryan Girdusky is back in the mix with us. He is a star of the Clay and Buck Podcast Network. His show, It's a Numbers Game. For those of you who just want to know, what is the data telling us? What is the reality of American politics based on the facts, the figures, all that good stuff? You want to impress all your friends who think they know about politics? Listen to It's a Numbers Game by Ryan Girdusky. Mr. Ryan, good to have you on, sir.
Thanks for having me back.
Let's talk. What's the most interesting stuff you're seeing right now? I mean, I've seen some of the numbers. For example, I mean, I was going to just lay it out to you, but actually, I want to know about this. The switch from Democrat to Republican for men, I think the number that I saw was under 40, basically, or maybe it was under 45 over the last 2 years is stunning stuff. Are those numbers real to you? Is the data good on that? And what's going on?
So it comes out of Pew Research. Pew Research reported that a party identification for men under the age of 30 had a 44-point swing towards Republicans, from Republicans having 36% to 52%. And among women under 30, there was a 14-point swing from women having 30 to 37. And obviously, Democrats lost 7 in that mix is where you get the 14 from. Now, is those numbers real? They're not based off of party registration numbers, right? So they didn't go to every state that registers people by party, and most states don't register people by party. You just register to vote. But they went through the overall, how do you think of yourself overall? Do you lean Republican and you lean Democrat? Interesting enough, there's a man named David Shore, a very, very smart progressive data scientist. David Shore said that in the 2024 election, not only did Donald Trump win young white men and young white women under the age of 20, he won young non-white men under the age of 20. And young white men under the age of 20 were the most Republican group of voters in the country. Trump won out 75% of their support. So do I think that is true? Probably. I mean, there's a lot of data to back that up, that young men especially, but young white men especially, are kind of pedal to the metal for the Republican Party. Now, does that mean that they love Trump and everything he's done? No. Trump's favorable numbers among young people is down. It's not, in any situation where it's down like 60, 70 points, but it has gone down. Remember, when someone's in office, numbers likely go down because you have to make good on all your campaign promises. And Americans are a very fickle bunch. We want things immediately.
I would say this because I've got 3 young boys, 17, 14, and 10 in my household, and I'm around their teams that they're on and everything else, Ryan. What I see is most 17-year-olds, 16, 14-year-olds, they don't have advanced opinions on what tax policy should be or how tariffs should be implemented. But what they do see is a scolding sort of school mom-like quality of the Democrat Party, constantly wagging their finger at young men. And I think this Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad is representative of that. How much of this do you think is a cultural sort of counter-revolution to the woke agenda that so many of these kids have been raised in? Because that's what I see as primarily motivating this response.
Well, there's 2 things that are primarily motivating this response, and I've spoken to a number of data analysts about this and data scientists. One was COVID, right? Kids who grew up with COVID losing graduation. It really was, I mean, I don't want to sound overextended when I say this, but it is true. It was kind of like growing up during World War II or growing up during the War on Terror or growing up during Vietnam. It is a defining thing for your generation that will impact your politics probably for the rest of your life.
Let me cut you off for a moment there, because I do think a lot of people have missed this. If you didn't get to go to prom or you didn't get to play your high school football season, and a lot of these kids, they're 16 and suddenly they don't go back to school again until they're 18, that's such a transformative era. I don't think that you're over-analyzing that. In fact, I think it's been under-discussed. I just want to kind of emphasize that aspect here because I think it hasn't been talked about enough about culturally.
Right. And the other big thing that no one else has talked about that a number of people brought up to me is that older Gen Zers, right, their parents are still like half baby boomers, which are now becoming one of the more progressive. Younger baby boomers are far more progressive than older baby boomers are. Most younger Gen Zers, or almost all younger Gen Zers' parents, are Gen Xers, and they are the most Republican demographic in the country today. So the who is these Gen Zers' parents also plays a significant part in why their politics have shifted. Their politics are more right-wing for these kids, in part because the parents have changed and the parents are more right-wing than the parents that came before. That plays a significant role in why these kids are more younger. I mean, listen, if you grew up and you were a baby boomer and you were a younger baby boomer, like let's say you're 60 now, and your politics revolved around, I don't know, not protesting the Vietnam War, you might have been too young for that, but you remember it certainly, versus if you are a younger baby, if you're a Gen Xer and you grew up watching, Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, and you thought, you were nonconformist, and you had Johnny Depp posters in your bedroom versus like David Cassidy, that's an entirely different cultural reference point. And a lot of Gen Xers are more countercultural in that respect, and they do had a nonconformity, and they don't like authoritarianism like the way we saw during COVID.
Speaking of Ryan Girdusky, It's a Numbers Game is his podcast on the Clay and Buck Network. So it's a great time to listen to it this weekend. Go check it out. You'll be really up to speed. Ryan, what else is really top of your radar for the data out there to tell us about how things are trending right now for Trump, the Republicans, the country at large?
Right. So there's a new poll out that I find very, very interesting. It's by a Democratic firm, so I'm going to take it with a big grain of salt, but it is a question I have thought about over and over, and that is Latinos who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and then Donald Trump and then 2024. This is the group that will affect a number of congressional districts. This is the group that we are redistricting Texas around, right? So the poll, which once again is a Democratic pollster, and they weren't particularly amazing during 2024, but they were like way, way off. So it's called Equus Research. They said that only 8% of Latinos who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 plan on voting for the Democrat in 2026. That is not a major defection at all. Specifically among Biden-Trump voters, these are what they call the Biden defectors. 30% say they are planning on voting for the Democrat. That is 10 points down from 3 months ago. That when it says 40% would vote for the Democrat. So of those group of people who are new to the Republican Party, who have a lifelong history of voting for Democrats, 2 out of 3 are not returning home for the Democratic Party. Now, you may say 30% is a huge chunk, but in long trajectories of in long history of when groups of people switch party unification, you're talking ethnic whites in the 60s or Jews or which not, or working class people, there's always bumps, ups and downs. They switch, they come back, they go, they come back, but there's a trajectory that you'll pay attention to. If you look at the Latino vote, the working class Latino vote, the fact that 2/3 are sitting there and saying, no, I'm probably either undecided or I'm definitely sticking with the Republican Party, that continues that trajectory going forward. And it's just for the Democrats and say, you're not going to wake up and all of a sudden be in 2012 again. These people kind of have come to stay, and you're going to have to either figure out a new coalition or change your policies or your vibes or whatever to bring them back.
Ryan, some people think that Kamala Harris has a political future. Other people think that Kamala Harris is finished. What do you think?
I am more of the side that Kamala Harris is probably finished with politics. I don't think anyone in the Democratic Party that I have spoken to, I know a few Democratic consultants take her seriously, and most did not take her seriously in 2020 when she was picked as the VP, and they certainly didn't take her seriously now, no matter how many obituaries they're writing that she said she had the perfect campaign. The perfect campaign genuinely leaves you in the White House. She's going on Stephen Colbert. It's a much different life.
On the House for next year, the 5 potential additions in Texas, there's lots of talk about a variety of different state moves and everything else. But it seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody trying to claim, only one side gerrymanders is completely wrong. Basically, red states are going to do whatever makes sense for red states by and large. Blue states are going to do whatever makes sense for blue states by and large. If you assess the overall map, is one party more or less guilty of gerrymandering than the other? And how much movement do you think might happen before next year, when I think most people agree the House is likely to come down to 5 or 6 seats? It's going to be a fine line between who controls it.
Well, there is one party that overly gerrymanders, and that's Democrats. Remember, the Democrats don't have control of many different states as reapportionment, right? They have control in 2020. They had control essentially of 7 states: Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Those are the only 7 states they had full control of. In all 7 states, there are a total of 6 elected Republicans out of dozens of congressional seats. They gerrymander them to the Republicans to the absolute corners where they couldn't basically get rid of all of them. But every chance that they had to get rid of them, Oregon should have easily 2 Republicans, Nevada 2 Republicans, New Mexico 1, Maryland 2, Illinois should have 5 or 6, Massachusetts should have 1. They all have none. Now, if you look at the Republican districts, Texas, everyone's talking Texas, so gerrymandered. Texas is less gerrymandered than Illinois, than Maryland, than New Jersey, than California, than Oregon, than New Mexico, than all of these states, right? They are super, super gerrymandered. And where they could knock Republicans off, they did. The problem is Democrats have sat there and changed to commission-based redistricting, which has to at least look semi-fair, even when it's not, in the case of California and New Jersey and Washington. So Governor Gavin Newsom pouting his chest saying, I'm going to fight Abbott, I'm going to change my lines, and I'm going to give Democrats 6 new seats. Is it possible? Sure. So is like a flying pig. It's not really ever going to happen because it would take so many hurdles. It'd have to do a constitutional convention, have to pass 2/3 majority, have to go to a vote for the people. Millions of dollars and several years would have to be spent in order for Gavin Newsom to get that. Same thing with New York. Same thing with New Jersey. These people pouting their chests and pretending like Democrats have been working, in such a sanctimonious way to give fair representation are lying to themselves. And most of them are lying to the voters about how they're going to fight back. It's basically to sit there and say, I'm going to be the candidate to take on Trump when they run for president in 4 years.
Who is the leader of the Democrat Party right now, as far as you can see, Ryan? Because Kamala was asked last night on Colbert and she didn't do what I would expect a Democrat to do, which is say, oh, we have so many people, and rattle off the first 4 or 5 names that come to mind. She said nothing. What do you think?
Well, isn't that typical of Kamala Harris to say nothing? I would sit there and say it's probably Bernie Sanders as of right now. I think Bernie Sanders. Yeah.
Wow. I thought you were going to say Newsom. Bernie Sanders.
No, it's not even close. Bernie has the highest favorability rating of any elected Democrat. Second is AOC. The progressive wing is on the rise, and there's no derailing it at this point. And they're going to switch the chairs on the deck on the Titanic, the deck chairs on the Titanic, to try to get more moderates to be elected. They'll move the primaries to South Carolina. They'll do everything they can. But we are just, maybe an election cycle, maybe 2 away from the Democrats going full Mondani nationwide. And that, we're just going to be in a new progressive phase where they go far left on a number of issues.
Let me make the case, and I want to get your reaction quickly here. If I'm advising Kamala, right, I'm not saying that I agree with all of this, all right, just to be fair. But I look at guys and gals who are likely to run: Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, Andy Beshear, J.B. Pritzker, and all of these so-called Mayor Pete. Many of them are basically white people, right, that are attempting to persuade college-educated white voters that they're the right choice. Like Mayor Pete, for instance, has 0% support among black people. Meanwhile, if you're a college-educated woman out there, you love him, right? He is your favorite gay friend. And so if you look on the minority side, right, Cory Booker is a joke. Right. I mean, every time a guy opens his mouth, he looks like Crazy Eyes from the Curb Your Enthusiasm. I mean, he just looks like an insane person. I think he has no larger political future. Westmore is uncertain. AOC. My point is, if you're looking at the minority black side of the Democrat Party, if I'm advising Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams is done, Karen Bass is done, there's almost no one else in that lane. And she doesn't have to be hugely popular. She just has to get that 25%. Am I crazy, or who is going to contend with her for that lane if she were to run?
Well, the one thing I would say, I understand your presumption, but I just want to put one little context in here, is that the black vote, especially in the South, doesn't always vote for the black candidate. They vote for the candidate they think can win. They are much more moderate and pragmatic than I think you're giving them credit for. So I would sit there and say, if you're Kamala Harris and you want to have a footprint in politics, realizing that your weaknesses as a candidate, I would go and do what Richard Nixon did, form a super PAC, campaign for the next Democrat, be a kingmaker, and then if they don't win, come on your white horse and give it 8 years in the wilderness. She can afford that time. If she wants to do that, I don't think she even can. But I don't think the presumption is that the black vote is going to only vote for a black candidate. I think that they'll be okay with a black candidate being on the ticket, but I don't think that they need a black candidate because in the long history from Clinton onwards, remember Clinton ran against Jesse Jackson. I mean, and Obama was the only one that they sat there and said, we have to have it. So I think that they're more pragmatic than that and more moderate.
Good stuff, Ryan Girdusky. You can find him in the Clay and Buck Podcast Network. We appreciate the time, my man.
Thank you.
Look, out there right now, do you want to be able to communicate even if your phone network maybe goes down? Maybe you're in a storm. Maybe you're just traveling to a different part of the country where your network doesn't work very well. Well, guess what? Maybe you just want your kids off of the internet and you want to be able to stay in touch with them. And kids always love walkie-talkies. I used to play with my old G.I. Joe walkie-talkies back in the day. Maybe you got elderly parents and they don't really like smartphones very much. Whatever the reason might be, you need rapid radios in your life. We've got them in the Travis household. They are charged. They are ready. They will keep a 5-day charge. We have used them on the road for football games. We've used them driving in multiple cars to be able to talk back and forth on the interstate because kids are entertained by that. You can get hooked up right now. As Buck has talked about, his sister-in-law needed them in the Hurricane Helene storm that happened in Western North Carolina when so many people were disadvantaged. You can get your own rapid radios right now and save 60% off plus free UPS shipping from Michigan. Any use code radio, you get an extra 5% off. That's rapidradios.com, code radio. Get hooked up today, rapidradios.com, code radio.